mocked and forgotten. To most of the galaxy, Orpheus 9 was a punchline. Tucked away in the distant Lydra system, the colony had no strategic resources, no trade routes, and barely scraped by on its self-sufficient infrastructure. Its surface was a dust-choked wasteland with a single settlement huddled under a weathered geodome, barely holding out against the frigid windstorms of its host moon. EarthGov listed it as non-essential. Trade routes bypassed it. The Galactic Network only mentioned it when something went wrong, which admittedly was often. Orpheus? That rock's got more cows than citizens, joked a popular streamer during a live broadcast from the Martian core. The colony's population was less than 10,000, and half of them were over 60. The rest were mostly technicians, agricultural engineers, and a smattering of misfits who either didn't belong elsewhere or didn't want to. No military bases, no satellites worth stealing, no orbital defenses. At least, that was the story. Commander Elia Vance watched the latest broadcast on her cracked datapad, a mug of recycled coffee steaming in her hand. The Martian comedian's voice buzzed through a rusted speaker, laughing at Orpheus 9's annual power failures and prehistoric tech. Vance didn't smile. She hadn't in years. Behind her, the command center of Orpheus 9 hummed with low energy efficiency by design. The dull consoles and sluggish response systems masked a network of military-grade AI cores buried 2 kilometers beneath the surface. On the surface, the colony barely qualified as functional. But deep below the dust, Orpheus 9 was a fortress. Vance swiped away the broadcast and turned to the console. "Status report," she said. A young operator, 18, fresh out of underground combat school, straightened. Outer perimeter holding. Cloak nets stable. Deep skin pulses from Quadrant 6 continue, low grade. Still the same signature? The operator nodded. Identical to last week. Still masking as solar radiation drift. But it's persistent. Vance frowned. The scans weren't natural. They had a rhythm, like a heartbeat or a sensor sweep. She tapped a code into her terminal. A series of encrypted logs opened. Intercepted transmissions, deep space signal profiles, movement across dark zones of the galactic map. The pattern was there if you knew what to look for. The Krel Dominion, a predatory alien power, had been advancing coreward in silence. Colonies began disappearing months ago, quietly, bloodlessly. Orpheus 9 had been watching. Always watching. The colony had been established 43 years ago under EarthGov's Palingard Initiative. Publicly, it was a test bed for low-resource colonization. Privately, it was a refuge built by veterans, scientists, and spy masters. Men and women who had seen the worst of alien war and knew Earth would need one untraceable safehold should everything go dark. Orpheus 9 had nothing to offer because it was never meant to attract attention. "Commander," another voice came through the comms, this one older, gravel-toned. "Lieutenant Arun Das, Chief of Subterranean Ops. Security net just pinged. Long-range distortion at 87 Australian dollars and 40 cents. Faint but spiked. Vance's jaw tightened. ETA. 4 days, maybe 5. Could be a scout. Could be a fleet running dark. Time to protocol Leviathan. 6 minutes to warm. We can be hot in 12. Prep it. Quietly." Das paused. "Quietly? If they're coming. If they're coming, they'll come thinking we're weak. Let them believe it a little longer." "Understood, Commander." The line clicked off. Vance leaned back in her chair and stared at the cracked ceiling of the command bunker. She remembered Earth, before the expansion, before the wars, before the arrogance of humanity's growth blinded them to how fragile they really were. Orpheus 9 wasn't a colony. It was a weapon disguised as a joke. And soon, someone was going to find out the hard way. She keyed in a private line. "All personnel, this is a Level 2 silent alert. Civilians to prep zones. All units to standby stations. Repeat, this is not a drill. No alarms. No flashing lights. Just the low rumble of old machinery waking up beneath the dust. The invaders. 3 light years out from Orpheus. 9, hidden in the void between stars. The Krell Dominion's forward assault vessel Varnaxthal, coasted silently through space. Its hull pulsed with organic lights, a grotesque fusion of metal and flesh, powered by the minds of its psychic pilots. Inside, hundreds of Krel warriors floated in nutrient sacks, mentally linked to the ship's neural web. To them, war wasn't fought with tactics. It was enforced through domination of thought, of fear, of will. And Orpheus, 9, by every scan, had no will worth breaking. This world is ripe. His Sarnex, supreme Talon of the 8th Spear Fleet. His long, segmented limbs clicked with excitement as he slithered forward in the command chamber. A husk. No shields. No standing fleet. No worthy minds. Another voice, a deeper one, responded from a fleshy mound in the chamber wall. It is beneath us, wasteful to strike. Sarnex flared his neck frills in defiance. We've struck deeper targets. This colony lies in contested space. If we scorch it now, we send a message. Human colonies are not safe, no matter how far they burrow in a rock. The others in the chamber clicked and pulsed in agreement. The decision was made. On Orpheus, 9, the silence of pretense held steady. In a cavern 30 stories below the surface, Lieutenant Arun Das monitored the approaching signals with clinical focus. His team had isolated the signature of Krel propulsion, gravity compression drives, usually masked by subspace scatter, but not to Orpheus 9's deep field sensors. They've shifted to Decel, he said, eyes locked on the glowing interface. Inbound in 42 hours. Minimal power signature, but it's a war barge. Big one. Commander Elia Vance stood behind him, arms folded. Troop estimate? Could be anywhere from 200 to 1,000. Depends how many they've put in cryo or cerebral link. If they're using psychic assault protocols, even 50 could be trouble. Vance nodded. Has EarthGov responded to our priority ping? Das smirked. They logged it. Sent back a standard acknowledgement. No rerouted fleets. No reinforcements. Expected. We're still the galaxy's favorite punchline. Above ground, Orpheus. 9 remained the same dull, unimpressive spec it had always appeared to be. Drones maintained the illusion of neglect, staggered power relays, surface drones simulating agricultural failure, broken antenna arrays hanging limp in the wind. The Krel would see a vulnerable outpost, outdated and understaffed. Just as planned, back in the command chamber, Vance activated a secure channel. A cold blue light bathed the room as she spoke into the transmitter. All units. This is a Leviathan pre-fire notice. Begin 7-hour warm protocol. Activate deep defense grid. No exterior signals beyond low-band colony comms. Civilians to level 3 readiness. Defense personnel, mass signatures. Stealth posture, full. The hidden mechanisms of Orpheus 9 began to awaken. Orbital satellites, long thought to be outdated weather monitors, pivoted subtly into offensive configuration. Massive automated railgun platforms, buried beneath rock and sand, powered up silently. Underground hangars unsealed, exposing squadrons of Blackwing drones armed with quantum-sheathed blades and singularity mines. And far below the lowest civilian sectors, Project Scythe came online. An AI weapons suite so advanced it had been deemed too dangerous for wartime deployment during the Mars-Umber conflict. Orpheus 9 had been its home ever since. Vance watched it all unfold with a cold, practiced calm. They'll make contact before sunrise, Das murmured, checking the system clock. Tomorrow's going to be loud. Vance didn't blink. Only for them. Aboard Varnak's Thull, the final approach had begun. Sarnex stood at the biocommand deck, eyes fixed on the pale dot of Orpheus 9. The ship's augmented mind painted it in scans. One dome, low power use, minimal heat signatures. Nothing moved. No defenses. A dead shell, Sarnex whispered. Crack it open. Burn what's inside. The ship's brain pulsed its ascent. All systems shifted to attack posture. Organic plating slid away to reveal banks of particle cannons and psychic pulse emitters. Krel warriors awoke from hibernation, their minds linking into a single collective scream. The countdown began. 42 hours to contact. But none of them, not even Sarnex, sensed the trap awaiting them below. 7 minutes of hell. T-minus midnight. The Varnaxthal loomed over Orpheus, 9 like a god descending to crush an ant. Krel warriors pulsed with hunger. Their minds were linked in perfect synchronicity, ready to flood the colony with a psychic storm designed to melt resistance before the first weapon was fired. The strike began without warning. Minute 1, illusion. A wave of plasma erupted from the Krel barge's belly, carving through the atmosphere like fire through dry leaves. Explosions rippled across Orpheus 9's surface. Buildings vaporized, comms towers shattered. The dome collapsed in a wash of flame. But none of it was real. Holographic emitters scattered across the colony played a perfect illusion of destruction. The Krel targeted ghosts, carefully programmed images paired with thermal distortions and simulated energy feedback. Inside the real bunkers below, Commander Vance stood untouched, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. "Scythe reports no penetration," she said calmly. "They're wasting ammo." Minute 2, retaliation. Orpheus 9 struck back. From orbit, satellites disguised as weather drones suddenly pivoted into active mode. Inside each was a coiled magnetic railgun powered by compressed fusion capacitors. With mathematical precision, Project Scythe fired 8 shots in under 3 seconds. The first 3 slammed into the Varnaxthal's aft shield generators. The fourth hit a Krel fighter bay mid-deployment. The rest pierced the ship's outer shell, destroying its psychic amplifiers. On the Krel vessel, chaos erupted. Warriors writhed as their hive mind fractured. Minute 3, disruption. Inside Orpheus 9's core, Vance gave a single nod. Engage scrambler net. Ground-based transmitters activated, flooding the upper atmosphere with quantum interference. The Krel's psychic network, dependent on subspace coherence, flickered, then collapsed entirely. The warriors screamed as they were mentally severed from the collective. Individual thoughts overwhelmed them. Fear, confusion, pain. Krel tactics, built on unity, dissolved into disorder. On the bridge of Varnaxthal, Sarnex howled in rage. Minute 4, infiltration. From a camouflage canyon 5 kilometers west of the colony, a hangar split open. 3 stealth interceptors, black, wingless, arrowhead-shaped, launched into the sky. Guided by silent AI pilots, they flew below radar, hugging terrain, then climbing with impossible velocity. Each carried a single payload, a singularity core, one of Earth's deadliest and most forbidden weapons. As the Krel ship struggled to realign itself, the interceptors broke formation. 2 were destroyed by defensive fire. The third made it through. It pierced the hull and burrowed into the neural center of the Krel ship. The warhead ignited. Minute 5, collapse. A silent bloom of darkness formed in the center of the ship, a gravitational anomaly no larger than a marble. But it expanded rapidly, pulling matter inward, shredding the barge's interior systems and folding its command core into itself. The Varnaxthal buckled inwards. Organic plating peeled back like scorched flesh. Fire and black holes don't mix well, and the Krel learned that too late. The remainder of their fleet, 3 cruisers and 7 drop ships, watched as their flagship imploded. They didn't retreat. They hesitated, and that was enough. Minute 6, hijack. Orpheus 9 activated its last trick, Operation Backlash. Nanoswarms, dormant until now, burst from underground launchers and streaked into the sky in tight swarms. These weren't human-designed nanites. They were Krell-origin bio-nanites, reverse-engineered and reprogrammed by Vance's scientists. The swarms infected the remaining Krell ships within seconds, bypassing their defense protocols. Engines failed, hulls decomposed, plasma weapons turned inward and fired randomly. 2 drop ships collided and exploded. Another plunged into the moon's surface. Minute 7, surrender. The surviving ships sent a signal, not to regroup, but to beg for extraction. Vance watched as the final cruiser, dead in space, tried to spin up its FTL drive. She keyed in a final command. EMP net. Now, a wave of charged particles erupted from the planet's pole. The Krel ship went dark, completely inert. Silence fell. In just under 7 minutes, the strongest Krel spearhead in this sector had been obliterated. Not a single human casualty. Not a single defensive structure lost. In the command bunker, no one cheered. There was no celebration. Only precision, silence, and routine. Vance looked to Das. Status. He checked. All enemy vessels down. 2 recoverable. For captured prisoners. Vance nodded. Send a message to EarthGov. Tell them the weak colony just bought them another year. Echoes and silence. The battlefield above Orpheus 9 had fallen quiet. Debris drifted in slow arcs across the sky. Burnt hull fragments, warped pieces of Krel armor, and the eerie glow of damaged bioships curling in on themselves like dying insects. Below, the colony's surface remained unchanged, the illusion of fragility perfectly preserved. But under the surface, the truth thrummed like a quiet heart. Commander Elia Vance stood alone in the observation chamber, looking out through a reinforced viewport at the half-buried wreckage of the Varnaxthal. What remained of the Krel flagship now lay pinned in the dust, like a monument to arrogance. Behind her, Lieutenant Das approached, data tablet in hand. EarthGov just responded. She didn't turn around. Let me guess, they're stunned. They're confused. They thought the Krel attack logs were spoofed. When they got our sensor feeds, they started calling it impossible tech. Vance allowed herself a bitter smile. Impossible? We've been building this defense for 4 decades. They ignored every request for resources, every warning. Orpheus 9 was our fallback, and they laughed at us. Das glanced down at the tablet. They're requesting a full disclosure report and a real-time briefing with high command. They also want to relocate several key personnel to Earth for debrief. No, Vance said instantly. Das blinked. No, you don't pull the shield off the bunker because someone finally noticed the bunker works, she replied. Tell them we're not transferring anything. They can send diplomats. We'll share intel selectively. But Orpheus 9 remains autonomous. Das hesitated. You think they'll listen? They will now. She turned away from the viewport and strode down the corridor, past rows of silent command terminals and flickering tactical displays. Orpheus 9 had returned to low-power mode. The illusion of weakness would resume until it was needed again. Behind them, technicians were already disassembling the stealth interceptors, cleaning the launch bays, cataloging the nanite clouds. No trophies, no broadcasted victory, only memory, silence, and preparation. Elsewhere, in the decontamination sector, 3 Krel prisoners sat bound in containment fields, unable to connect to each other or the void. Their minds, fractured from the hive mind collapse, had reverted to their most basic forms, survival-driven, twitching, angry. Dr. Marin Lyra, the colony's lead xenoneurobiologist, stood with her arms crossed, observing them. They're broken, she murmured. Her assistant, a young woman named Karu, nodded. They're trying to relink mentally, but the interference field is holding. They came here believing they'd wipe us out in minutes, Lyra said. Now, they can't even form coherent thoughts without a central hive to guide them. Should we interrogate them? Lyra shook her head. There's nothing left to interrogate. The moment their ship was severed from the network, they lost the core of who they were. The Krel don't train for failure. They don't know how to exist without dominance. She looked through the reinforced glass at the nearest prisoner, a tall creature with cracked carapace and wild, red-tinged eyes. They feared us because they didn't understand us. That's why we won. Not because of weapons. Because we can survive without unity. We fight alone if we have to. Later that evening, the colony lights remained dim per protocol. Surface drones rearranged false damage debris. Civilians resumed hydroponic rotations and water recycling maintenance, just as if an alien invasion hadn't been destroyed above their heads mere hours ago. Commander Vance sat alone in the operations archive, watching old holologs, videos from the original settlers, engineers laughing in low gravity, children planting the first biocrops. There were no metals in this colony, no victory parades. Just dirt, silence, and legacy. A new transmission came in. Unencrypted. Civilian frequency. She opened it. A live feed from a Martian news stream. The headline crawled across the bottom of the screen. Rumors of KREL defeat in uncharted system. EarthGov denies involvement. Vance smiled faintly. Good. Let them deny it. Let them doubt. Let the galaxy wonder what really happened to the spearhead of the Krel fleet. Let them whisper the name Orpheus. 9 with confusion, then fear. Let the weakest colony on Earth remain forgotten until the next time it is needed. She turned off the feed. In Orpheus 9, there were no heroes, only survivors. And survivors always prepare.